Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Helen Bailey. Her story is one of tragedy. So let's go. Sin and Tonic! Buzzing to be here today, by the way. It's like sacred time for me. The minute I get my camera set up, I'm like in the zone. It's just, I love it. And always lovely to have such really nice comments from people. It feels like a little community now of Sin and Tonic loves. It's something in my life now that I really look forward to every, hopefully Friday, when I manage to get a video out, because sometimes it's sweaty Betty time. Weird behind the curtain when, there's like files. I don't know about all this stuff. And neither does my husband. And we just are muddling through sometimes, like swearing at each other, trying to get a video out every Friday. But like I said, I love it and I'm enjoying it so much that it's all worth it. It's all worth it, guys. It is for me. I hope it is for you too. Let's crack on. Introducing Helen Bailey. She was born on the 22nd of August in 1964, near Newcastle upon Tyne. We just call it Newcastle here. You just say Newcastle. I've never heard anyone actually say, is it a different place? Google. Yeah, look at that. It is just often known as Newcastle. I was thinking, is that two different places? But no, it is Newcastle upon Tyne. But I've never heard anyone actually call it that. We just call it Newcastle. Newcastle. They're from Newcastle. That is shockingly bad. Sorry. Who's from Newcastle? Newcastle. I've said it so many times now. Newcastle! Newcastle accent. No, I'm just playing. Oh, hey, man. Honestly, the Google searches are unreal sometimes. Anyhow, Helen was born and brought up near Newcastle. Moving on. She loved to write, and most of her writing as a younger child would be in the form of a diary and things like that. And she didn't get on very well at school. She was a bit picked on. She would write about that in her diary as well. She went to London to go to university and she studied physiology and she wanted to become a forensic scientist. Ooh. But she didn't enjoy it. She wasn't into it. You never know until you try. So she moved on and she became, and this is like just out the bag, like a licensor, like a marketing for cartoon characters. Things like the Rugrats. Do you remember that? I do. And Nintendo characters and Garfield. Everyone knows Garfield. So yeah, so like licensing and marketing of cartoon characters. It was at this company that she then took a temporary role as a secretary. So like they needed someone to cover that role and she did. And this is where she met her husband, John. They moved in together, I think in Highgate, I believe. And John noticed in Helen her like talent and creativity in her writing. Like I said, she'd always enjoyed it and it seems like it was something that she was really good at. So he encouraged this in his wife. They got married and she actually went on to be a really successful author. So isn't that nice? It's like, when two people get together and it's love and encouragement and it's just like, yes. And I thought that was really sweet. It's always nice when you are in a partnership and the other person is supportive and encouraging of your dreams. Like Paul swearing at me when we try and get a video out on Friday. He does it though, that's the point. So Helen Bailey, I'm going to call her Helen, it's nicer. So Helen, she actually wrote 5 books in a series that was really popular with teenagers. The Crazy World of Electra Brown, you may have heard of it. She was even nominated for a Queen of Teen Award in 2010 because all the books were like about teenage angst and things like that. She also went on to write some books for younger children and ended up in total with like 22 published books, which is successful, really good. John and Helen were very much in love and they had been together for 22 years and married for 15 of those, happily, from what I could gather, very happily. And this is just where the just tragedy strikes, and it's just awful. In 2011, Helen and John are on holiday in Barbados. Sounds beautiful, lovely. I'd love to go. It looks lovely. They are on the beach and John decides that he's going to go out for a swim, and Helen, she stays on the beach to, I don't know, have a bit more sunbathing or what have you. And she says, I'll come out and I'll have a swim in a bit. And then a little while later, she sort of gets up to go and have a look and see where John's at and go to meet him. And she notices that he's quite far out and he's in trouble. He's struggling. So she goes to get some help, basically, like a lifeguard or, you know, someone like that to go out and rescue John. And just so sadly and tragically, like I said, it is a very tragic case. They were too late and he had drowned. Just awful. Then poor Helen is left stranded effectively on this blimmin' like luxurious romantic holiday, and her husband has just drowned in the sea. So she's out there, I think, for another week or something like that. It just, like, how surreal. That must have been such a surreal time for her. And then she came back to the UK. In her, like, grief and sadness and just heartbreak, Helen turns to writing again, and she ends up starting a blog about grief. She called this Planet Grief, and it was a cathartic way of her dealing with the death of her husband. This was quite successful, this blog, and it led on to a book actually, which was called When Bad Things Happen in Good Bikinis. And again, this was a really positive thing for her to do. It really helped her with her grief and finding ways to move forward. 7 months later, she was still writing her Planet Grief blog, and it remained successful, and lots of people would communicate on there, talk to each other, write in the comments, and she would also herself talk to and be a part of that community. As a part of that, she ended up meeting somebody called Ian Stewart. He had lost his wife, and him and Helen, they just started chatting and they hit it off, basically. So they became quite close and they became lovey-lovey. And the two of them moved to Royston in Hertfordshire. I think I've said that wrong. Yeah, sorry, I did. It's Hertfordshire. It's because it's spelled HERTFORDSHIRE. So Fordshire is obviously fine, although to me that's Shire. Okay. Hertfordshire. It's like out of The Hobbit, isn't it? But anyway, sorry, I'm on a tangent there. Hertfordshire. They moved into, let's just say, Royston, into a lovely, large home together. Don't forget, Helen is a successful author. She's got some money. And they move in there with Helen's dog, Boris, and Ian's 2 adult sons. So that's the situation. At this point in time, it's quite a good time for Helen. She's happy again. She's loved up. She's got a nice house. She's got a lovely dog, and she is successful, not only before this, but also the blog and her book. They are doing really well. So it's a good time of life for Helen. Doesn't last though, does it? On the 15th of April in 2016, so we're talking 5 years after they have met, and I believe they're engaged now, Ian makes a phone call to the police, and it is a bit batshit, not going to lie, it's weird. So 15th of April, he reports his wife missing. Now, the last time he'd seen her was the 11th of April. Now, if I hadn't seen my husband for, again, the maths, 4 days, 3 or 4 days, that's a worry, you know, where is he? But apparently not so odd, because sometimes Helen would become overwhelmed with life and she might go and stay in one of her multiple properties. Again, like I said, she's got lots of monies and she had properties around the country. So she might go off and have some downtime. In this phone call, he's like yakking on, yakety yak, about like how she's been quite anxious recently and, painting a bit of a picture about this. She's been anxious and she needed space and time away. He didn't seem very normal for someone reporting their wife missing. He just didn't. You can probably find it on YouTube, I think, the recording of it, but it's just, all right, okay. The dog was also not there. The dog was with Helen. And it gets more weird because in the process of reporting somebody missing, they obviously need to know what they look like, what's their name, lots of information. The more information, the better, because, they need to find this person. So the lady on the phone, the police officer, she's asking lots of questions, that they've been together for 5 years. And he's just, I think, what's her date of birth? Seriously, how tall is she? Colour of her eyes, that you must have looked into lovingly at some point. Ooh, tricky. Got me there. What? Absolute mad. And suspicious. Are you nervous? So you can't answer these questions? I mean, why? Or just very, very odd. He goes on to say that she has left a letter to say, basically, leave me alone. I need time to myself. Please don't ring me or text me, communicate with me in any way, or come and see me. No. Ian is not Helen's only family. She has a brother, and this brother is concerned and finds it very odd that she would do this because it's not like her. He says, this isn't like Helen, actually, no. And so he goes to the property. In the letter she wrote that she was going to Kent. So her brother, he's like, no. So he drives to Kent. And when he arrives there, hello, excuse me, no Helen, no Boris dog, no. And it doesn't look like they've even been there. Previously to this, the police were like, well, she's left a note, mate. She's told you where she is. And what do you want us to do about that? But when her brother discovers that she actually isn't where she said she would be, and it doesn't look like she ever was, the police start to get involved. They start looking at her emails, all the usual stuff, her phone, her bank details, her card information, has she used her card? And it's all like, no. That is never good. That is never good, is it? They also go to Kent and they ask the locals around where her house is in Kent. Have you seen Helen? Have you seen Boris? No. So it really genuinely looks like she hadn't been there. 11 days after Ian reported her missing, the police speak to Ian. They need to find out, was she okay? Maybe she was suicidal. Is something a bit deeper going on here, maybe? They need to talk to Ian. He said she wasn't massively sad, she wasn't massively stressed, she was a bit anxious, but nothing like out of the ordinary. Nothing crazy, extreme. This is what he was saying. They found no clues of anything that would point towards her, like, running away, no plans or money that had gone out to pay for a ticket somewhere on a plane or a train or an automobile. And it didn't seem like that was the case. They looked for large amounts of money that might have been withdrawn from her account, and no, there was none of that either. So it was looking a bit like, well, no leads. They interviewed friends, they searched the local area, they looked all around her house, local surrounding woodlands, just sort of desperate at this point to have something to go on. The police started they had tried to track her phone, but it was off, so that was a dead end. So then they were clever, and they wanted to then check her Wi-Fi. Had she, her phone or her laptop or anything like that at any point since she'd gone missing 6 weeks ago or whatever, connected to the internet on the Wi-Fi. And what do you know? Ping, 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 ping. They must love it when they get things like that. Like, oh my God. It had. Her phone had connected to the Wi-Fi at the address in Kent. What? Where it looked like she'd never been, not been there, not whatever, never seen there. It had connected to the Wi-Fi there, her phone, on the 16th of April. So 5 days, is that 5 days? 12, 13, 14, 15. 4 days. Hang on, did I say 15th or 16th? 16th, 5 days after her disappearance. Well, what's going on now then? Okay, now it looks like she was there. Her phone pinged, the Wi-Fi connected to that address 5 days after she had disappeared. So, like, this is now just a bit confusing because she's not there and it looked like she never had been. Maybe her brother missed her. Maybe she didn't sleep in the bed, or like maybe she tidied up after herself and she had been there, but then she'd moved on. So it's looking, it's even more confusing now. It's like, oh God, okay, not that helpful, but it's something nonetheless. The police then decided to themselves go and search the property. And it really did look like her brother was right. It looked like no one had been there for a long time. So, you can sort of tell these things, can't you? Dust and whatever. Because of this, they did start to think that Helen had done a runner, that she'd run away, and that for whatever reason, you never know, do you? Excuse me. You never know, do you? Like, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. People can appear very happy and all the rest of it on the outside, but you never know. So they're thinking maybe she's done a runner. And they knew that she frequented Brighton, lovely place, quite a lot. And they put up lots and lots of posters around there and tried to sort of like, have you seen this woman? They thought she might be there. They even warned the public that she might possibly have changed her name because, if you want to be gone, be missing, start again, disappear, you're going to change your name, aren't you? So they kind of really did think that that's what had happened. At this point, they also started to really properly go through her financial records. And, this is where their first big whopping lead did actually come from, because she had a standing order for an amount of £400 to leave her own personal bank account every single month and go into her joint bank account, between her and her partner Ian. £400 every month. And then, after she went missing, that amount changed from £400 every month to £4,000. They also found another transaction in her personal bank account, which was the renewal of an Arsenal season ticket. And that was from her personal bank account after she'd gone missing. But it was the season ticket was in Ian's name. I mean, are you... Yes, he's stupid. Idiot. So now they need to have a little chatty with Ian again, don't they? Of course they do. But Ian was off skis. He was gone. So they spoke to the neighbours and they're thinking, oh my God, where's Ian? What have we done? Oh my God, it's always a husband. Well, partner in this case. So they're kicking themselves. Turns out Ian's on holiday. So your wife's missing. No idea where she is. And you decide to go on holiday. The holiday that they'd had booked for a while for the two of them, like a romantic getaway, he was like, oh, can't let that go to waste. Something else. I mean, weird, isn't it? What if she... You don't do that, Ian. No. What if she came home? Do you know what I mean? You've made yourself look guilty of sin, to be honest. With all of this in mind, the police are like, nah, we're going to change this to a murder investigation with freaking strong suspicion that Ian is the perpetrator. On the 11th of July 2016, Ian would return home from his holiboobs, and who would be there to greet him but the police? Yes. And he just can't believe it. He's like, say what? Are you joking? What? Like, he's, like, oh my God, can't believe it. They arrest him and he is, totally in shock. Can't get over it. Thought he got away with that one. The police actually did have no proof, and at this point there is no body, and it's a missing persons case, and there is no evidence that Ian has done anything, just some suspicious bank activity. And I mean, that could even be, if you think your wife's run off and you do have access to bank accounts and you think that she's done a runner and left you, it's not a stretch to think that that person, her husband or fiance, would think, well, screw you then, and go in the bank and buy himself a season ticket. I'll have that, thank you. And up the amount of money that's going. It's not a stretch, is it? So, that's. And he went on their holiday. Well, again, that is not a crime. It's odd, but whatever. But the police have taken a bit of a punt. Woken up, have we? With this in mind, the fact that the investigation has switched up and it's a murder inquiry now with little proof, the police are like, okay, we need to crack on here. They only have, I think once you've arrested someone, you only have 96 hours to charge them. I believe that is the case. So they need to work quickly now. My cheeks feel really hot. I wonder if I look pink as a pineapple, I was going to say. Pineapples are not pink, Sophie. Pink as a peach. What is pink? Pear. What is pink and begins with a P? Because it's going to piss me off. Pink as a pomegranate. Although I think they're a bit purpley, but whatever. It's got 96 hours. They need to get some evidence. They re-speak to, is that English? Don't know. We're going to go with it. They re-interview the neighbours, and now an elderly neighbour actually comes forward and is like, now you come to mention it, again, around 11 a.m, around the time that Helen is thought to have gone missing, she heard loads of banging, like lots of banging, to the point where it made her like, God's sake, like get up, interrupted her tea, and go to the window to have a look. And by the time she got to the window, there was nothing to be seen or whatever, but she said it sounded like a heavy door slamming. They also interviewed Ian. They want to talk to him about the day that, or the day that he last saw Helen. Like, what happened? Go, tell us. Now, this is Ian's account. So he says that he left his house at 3 p.m. to go to the doctor's. He was meant to go to the doctor's in the morning time. However, suspicious red flag here, he had to call the doctor's surgery that morning and say, oh, I'm ever so sorry. I can't make it. I've got car trouble. Well, they interviewed the GP because he did go to the GP at 3 p.m. or around then. And they were like, he seemed okay. He seemed normal, a little distant, but he seemed okay. After his visit to the doctor's, Ian would take a trip to the tip. Like, what's that in America? I know a lot of you in America. Tip. Like, a huge place where you get rid of all your rubbish. You can take like all your rubbish there. Stuff that you don't leave out in your bin on the road. Like a big tip. I don't know what that is. Trash heap? They're quite fun places, actually. You can find all sorts there. Well, you used to be able to. Probably not now because of Rona. Anywho, I digress. He was getting rid of a double duvet. Ian. Gets worse. Honestly, didn't waste any freaking time, this man. After going to the tip to get rid of a double duvet, he then goes to their solicitor. He wanted to discuss with this solicitor a property that Helen had in Newcastle and how he wanted them to push the sale through quickly. They interview the solicitor, who said that Ian was quite aggressive and angry about the whole situation because it was Helen's property and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't act on what Ian was telling them to do without Helen's permission, obviously. So I don't know what he was expecting from that, but he was really, really pissed off. He wanted to push this sale through, and they were like, well, okay, like, get Helen here then. He then said that after that visit, he then went home, and that's when he discovered that Helen wasn't there, and that he found the note to say that she'd gone to Ken and could everyone please kindly leave her the hell alone. He then made an unplanned visit to see his son. He's got 2 adult sons, remember, and he knows that his son, like on that evening, plays bowls, and he goes there to see him play or whatever, and then he takes him out for a Chinese. And his son said this was unplanned and, you know, it hadn't been scheduled in for that to happen. He just turned up. Have a nice Chinese. I always think that. How can people eat after, like, you know, when going back to the old note, you know, this note that she left telling everyone, like, leave me alone, don't call, don't text, anything. Like, the police are like, right, where's the note? You know, where did you put the note or whatever? No, he didn't. He threw it away. I mean, okay. He said, well, yeah, well, of course I did. Like, she left a note. She said what was going on. I threw it in the bin. Not a stretch, I suppose, not a stretch to think that that could happen. So I'll let him off that one. And then the stupid git. He tells the police that 4 or 5 days, my maths is so terrible, 4 or 5 days, after Helen's gone missing, on the 16th of April, he went to Kent, the rhyming, he visited Kent to see if she was actually there. And this just so happens to be the day that Helen's phone would ping and connect to the Wi-Fi in Kent. Genius. At this point, the police are still looking through lots of, like, financials, and they look at Helen's will, and here we go. That's where the motive lies, because every single thing, every penny, every property, the lot, and it is a lot, it's like 3-point-something million pounds, is all going to Ian. After this, he's just no comment. Again, lots of Christ on a cracker. Oh, that really made me jump. Oh, heart failure. Again, at this point, yes, okay, that is a bit of a motive, but just because someone's got money doesn't mean that husband's gonna kill them for it, partner. And they've got a lot of, like, circumstantial evidence, a lot of, like, oh, that looks dodgy, but nothing concrete. So they need that. They need that massively. Dog, come on then, Fraggle. And then a police officer that was there on the day that he was arrested, Ian, he was like, do you know what? Let's look at this, actually, because he was being a real Fruit Loop, a bit weird when we did arrest him. He kept on going on and on about the garage, like, you know, looking out the window, be like, the garage doors are open, because at this point the police were, like, properly researching his property as well, and he kept on banging on about the garage doors. Foolish. What's in the garage, mate? And now it would seem that they would have to search the garage again, because this just seemed like a bit suspicious. Now, do you remember the elderly neighbour? They spoke to her and she was like, oh yes, I heard some banging. That lady. Well, she then, during the search of the land and the property, she then came forward to the police and said, do you mind? Because they were making quite a lot of noise late into the night. It was going on till like midnight, and she was like, I need my sleep, please, come on. And they were like, oh, I'm really sorry, but we're actually emptying, like, this huge water tank, and it is quite loud and it just takes time. There was nothing they could do about the noise, and they were sorry. She was like, oh, okay, you know. She understood, and she was like, oh, you know, don't forget to check the other tank if that's what you're doing, the other tank that they've got. And the guy's like, so what? What tank? What other tank? Hello? Turns out there is another tank. It's a cesspit in the garage. Garage doors, worrying about the garage so much. Oh, it's all coming together, isn't it? Tragically, a cesspit, if you didn't know, is manky. It is basically when your drains and stuff from your house and all the waste, yeah, that's what I mean, shit, is all collected in a cesspit because like the pipes and stuff don't reach the connect to the drainage system, like the main drainage waste and everything. So you have a cesspit, it collects it all, and then like now and then it's emptied by a company. Gross. Like it's basically full of poo. Now Ian, in his helpfulness this whole time, never once told the police about this cesspit. Never once. Of course he didn't. They had no idea it was there. And the whole time when they were searching, and they'd already searched the garage, and likelihood is that they would have just not gone there again and not looked any further. But when they were searching in the garage, there was a Jeep parked in the garage, and that Jeep was parked over the opening, the manhole cover to this cesspit. Crafty. So unfortunately for the police, they decided that they would have to go ahead and search that disgustingness. They set to work, and 2 hours later, I mean, that is gross in itself and horrible for them because that's 2 hours of like sifting through horribleness. They actually did then find the body of Helen Bailey and her dog Boris. Really, really, really tragically, like I said, tragedy. This whole story is tragedy. Post-mortem was carried out. It was inconclusive about Boris, the dog, poor thing. Anyway. And with Helen, what they concluded was that she was actually being drugged. And at the time of her death, she was drugged with sleeping pills. And her cause of death was suffocation. There is a chance that... Fuck my life. Wow, that woke me up. I'm back. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So there's every chance that her and Boris were thrown into the cesspit, drugged and alive. But I like to think not. I like to think no. I have no idea about poor Boris. I don't want to think about that actually. But in my gut, I think that she was drugged and he suffocated her and then threw her into the cesspit. Still awful, but I hope that's what he did. There was amounts of this drug in her system which would suggest that this had been going on for a while. And when they looked back through her internet history, she had been making searches about why am I tired all of the time. Piece of... I think that what they reckon is that he was just literally drugging her with these sleeping pills. Man, some people. I mean, what, did he hope that would kill her off? I don't know, but yeah, so it was ascertained that for months he had been drugging his wife. Now, these sleeping pills that were in her system were by prescription only, and they were not prescribed for her, they were prescribed to Ian. Ian would plead not guilty to the charges, therefore a trial would have to be set, and that was set for 2017. And the absolute arse decided that he would take the stand and defend himself. Always works well. In a story never mentioned to lawyers, law enforcement, anybody, he decided at trial to say that in fact, as of the 11th of April in 2016, he knew that his wife was in fact kidnapped by two men called Nick and Joe, and that they were extorting him for money, hence the bank account going from £400 to £4,000. You know, it's all coming together. They wanted £500,000 for Helen. Oh, he said he's spoken to her on the phone and she was like, I'm okay, but give them the money or they'll kill me. Like, just absolute drivel. Thankfully, it was incredibly obvious that he had made this entire thing up, and it was not bought whatsoever by the jury. And the prosecution, they actually sort of did a bit of digging here, and they found two men that Ian actually knew called Nick and Joe. And he basically described them, but he was like, oh no, it's not them, it's another couple of people called Nick and Joe. And hallelujah, he was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 34 years. Oh, I forgot to mention, in the trial, when they had the trial, Helen's brother, he came forward. This is sad. His sister, when they bought the property, the big property in Royston, Hertfordshire, when she was showing her brother around, like, oh, look at this, lovely, beautiful land, house, all that, like, proud of it, happy, she was like, oh, and there's a cesspit in the garage in there. She was like, oh my God, wouldn't that be a great place to hide a body? She had said that herself. Oh, it's cringy, isn't it? It's like, I hate things like that. And she'd said it in earshot of Ian. So, yeah. Just thought I'd share that with you. Little nugget. Anyway, moving on. It doesn't end here. It gets worse. And it hasn't ended yet. Because in 2018, August, I believe, 2018, Ian, serving life in prison, oh, he's rearrested. Oh, what? Now, do you remember why and how Ian and Helen met? Their union was through Planet Grief, wasn't it? The blog, and like talking about their grief of their lost husband and wife. Can you see where I'm going with this? Of course you can, because you're smart. The police were made aware that there were some concerns about the death of his first wife. And yeah, her family had not ever been happy with the explanation that they had been given. His first wife, Diane, had apparently died from complications of her epilepsy. And she died very suddenly and unexpectedly. So it was odd. Ian, he received a number of payouts, and I think £33,000 from a life insurance policy that she held. And so Ian is due to stand trial for the death of his first wife. I will have to do another update little video for you on that one, because I couldn't find the ins and outs and what evidence they've got and stuff, but it would be interesting to know what really happened to Diane, his first wife. So we should tell her story too, I think. And the trial is due in November of this year, 2021. So when that goes down, I will give it a bit of time and then do a little update for you. Many friends of Ian's came forward and said that he was incredibly tight with money, almost like an obsession with it. He would count every penny. He was a real tightwad. Basically, he would never put any money in for birthday parties of friends and family and stuff like that. And that he was always trying to come up with ways of getting more money. How about not murder? Anyway, that concludes today's story for now. I did find it an interesting case. I always wonder what is going on in there with these people. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed sitting down and having this sacred time. Like I said, I like it a lot. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Sin and Tonic. I hope you can join me next week for another true crime story and a glass, mug, vase, tub, jug of gin. Bye!